If you didn't come to hang out with your friends or to have a cheesesteak or to maybe even go run the Rocky Steps, you came to Philadelphia certainly for the 8 credits you could have gotten at License to Live the conference. But if for some reason you missed all of it, here is the next installment of What You Missed, Part 3, that we will run right in this show.
Welcome to the Licensed to Live show, where professionals, doctors, champions, VIPs, attorneys, and those in public office discover strategies that help you restart and gain what is lost when you find yourself accused. If another has doubted your integrity, questioned your credentials, or caused your actions to come under scrutiny, you are in the right place. On the other hand, if you have never felt the knot in the pit of your stomach when legal papers are served, the heartbreak of disappointing your family when the lock clicks shut on handcuffs, or had to appear before a board of review, then be aware, the longer you serve, the more likely you are to find yourself under the microscope of those who judge. Prepare yourself for this uncomfortable possibility. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jarrett Patton.
Welcome to episode 125. Yes, $1.25 of License to Live. My name is Dr. Jarrett Patton, and I am your host for our journey together today and every day you choose to listen to this show. If you or anyone you know has been dissed in their career, please invite them to join us along this journey. All you have to do is go to Apple Podcasts and hit subscribe. Tell your friends to hit subscribe. You might have to type licensed to, maybe even L, but it'll pop right up. It'll be there, and hit subscribe. Tell your friends about it, and we will keep this show moving. Today, we are wrapping up the conference. We've been giving little tidbits of what you may have missed. They're all jewels, so if you've been keeping score, we've had 22 gems that have been dropped on the last 2 episodes that have really started to change people's lives. They even started to change my life and make me look at doing things in a different way moving forward. So continue to join the conversation. You can check it out using the hashtag LTL22, and we will keep it rolling. So I'll get into the remainder of the show right after we finish thanking our sponsors. Hey, this is Dr. Jarrett Patton. Do you need more positivity in your life? No matter what part of your life you want to transform, positive affirmations can help you achieve your goals. But sometimes making permanent changes can be difficult. Designed with you in mind, License to Live, daily affirmations to rebuild your life will inspire and equip you to become the best version of yourself. License to Live, daily affirmations to rebuild your life will set you on the path to changing your mindset, beliefs, speech, and ultimately your actions. You can change your life now by getting your copy at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your finer book retails, or licensedtolive.com. That's licensedtolive.com.
Something smells good. EH3 coffee. EH3 coffee. Premium organic. Nothing better than waking up. EH3 in your cup. Premium organic. EH3 coffee. Nothing better than in the middle of your day. EH3 coffee. Premium organic. EH3 coffee.
Yeah, and EH3 was one of our sponsors for VIP Day. They serve EH3 coffee all day long. And let me tell you something, people really love that brand. I mean, I still have that coffee when I wake up in the morning. It just has a low acidity, a very well-balanced taste. Got to just try it. Check it out. Links in the show note. I'll say no more, but shout out to EH3 for sponsoring License to Live VIP Day for a second consecutive year. We appreciate all you do for License to Live. So people are asking me, well, how did you get CME credits for this conference? Well, I know a lot of people. My network is broad. And if you're a part of my network, then you get exposed to my network. And Dr. Yvette McQueen, the Med Queen, she actually was able to get some CME credits based on the programming that we have. So people got 8 credits to show up to this conference. So there's no excuse for people not to come next year. Many of you guys have CME money that you probably don't even use up all the way. So make sure you're shouting us out at LTL23 so you can get your credits. And if you want to join in on these credits now, you can watch the replay. Go to licensedtolive.com for the replay. So we finished up the first day with one of our internationally recognized speakers, Dr. Bonzo Reddick. He is the chair of community medicine at Mercer University. He's also been a diversity dean, associate dean to the medical school, and has lots of chief academic titles. In addition, he is winding up his book that is about the social determinants of health and eliminating race-based medicine. And his talk really launched off the CME section fantastically because, well, he really talked about housing as being one of the most, if not the most important determinant of health. And this is what he says about that.
What Housing First says is that people are always housing ready. It doesn't matter what their situation is, they are ready for a house if they want one. So you don't have to say, okay, well, you have severe mental illness, so you need to see a psychiatrist first. Or you have substance abuse problems, so you have to get drug rehab first. No, you give people housing right where they are. And Housing First was actually first studied in people that are the most challenging undomiciled people to care for. So people that had serious mental illnesses, things like uncontrolled, untreated bipolar disorder or paranoid schizophrenia, and substance abuse. And what they found out was that when they give people housing in those situations, it turns out they decrease costs, they decrease ER visits. People actually had decreased involvement in the criminal justice system. So across the board, their health and social outcomes improved when you gave them housing. So again, the idea again is that being homeless is a chaotic situation. If you can get people out of that situation, their mental health will improve, they'll use less drugs, their health will improve, and you will decrease the cost to society as well. And again, some people argue, oh, if you get somebody who's schizophrenic and using crack cocaine, they're just going to tear up a house you give them. None of the studies actually bear that out. It turns out that the overwhelming majority of people in these situations actually maintain their house. And also keep in mind, a lot of people stereotype homeless people. That kind of population I mentioned that have severe mental illness and substance abuse, even though people say that's most homeless people, is actually only about 10 to 20% of homeless people.
Yeah, so when we're thinking about the homeless population, you could fix a lot by simply providing a home, and a lot of these health issues start to go away. And I thought that was something especially insightful for someone who does street medicine as a part of the many things he does. And Dr. Bonzo wasn't there yet. It wasn't done just there yet because he gave us a lot more to think about because of these determinants of health that are maybe so-called biological. You can see my air quotes through your AirPods, I'm sure, but they're biological determinants of health that really don't stand up. And he talks about these biologic determinants and saying that we should look at it in a different way.
So let's look at cardiovascular disease, specifically atherosclerotic coronary cardiovascular disease, or ASCVD. So for everybody, I think most people have a clinical background, so this should be pretty clear to you. Person on the left, person on the right, same age, both coming in for an annual physical. The person on the left has a little bit elevated blood pressure. They're technically obese based on their body mass index. Their HDL is low, their LDL is a little bit high, and they're pre-diabetic. The person on the right, on the other hand, has an ideal body mass index by how we define it, favorable cholesterol panel. They're not pre-diabetic. At the same time, the person on the left's heart disease risk for the next 10 years is 1.7%. The person on the right is 2.3%. How is that possible that the pre-diabetic, obese, with slightly elevated blood pressure and bad cholesterol has a lower heart disease risk than the person on the right? You guessed it, it's based on race. The person on the left is white, the person on the right is black. There's calculators from the American College of Cardiology, American Heart Association, that use population-level data to predict what somebody's 10-year risk is. It thinks about your demographics, your age, your gender, your race, your blood pressure, your cholesterol values, all those things get factored in, whether or not you smoke cigarettes, and they give you a heart disease risk. So as you can see, the person on the right being black, their race alone makes them a higher risk person than the one on the left, even though the person on the left has higher numbers. So if the person on the left were to actually get their numbers and look as good as the black person on the right, their risk drops from 1.7% down to 0.4%. So almost sixfold better than the person on the right just because of their race alone. So when I first discovered this, these are actually my actual personal results from when I had my 40-year-old physical a few years ago. And those numbers, I was kind of surprised because my doctor gave me my ASCVD risk, and I was like, I thought it was going to be like 1%. So I went and pulled the number up myself on my calculator to see if he miscalculated. I got 2.3%. And I started thinking, I wonder what would happen if I was white. Would that change my number a lot? Typed it in, saw my percent drop almost sixfold and could not believe it.
And this does give us a lot to think about because, well, there's a whole new way of thinking out there based on a lot of research that a lot of us weren't taught. A lot of us were taught to present in medical school. We have a 34-year-old African-American sickle cell patient who presents with blah, 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 blah. And we give all of these descriptors that, well, now it's looking like the research is saying they're not important. These social determinants are real, but some of these biologic determinants that we've held so closely, maybe not so real. Kicking off the final day of the program, we had Dr. George Nam. He goes by the name of Dr. Jeep. And Dr. Jeep he got right into storytelling from the stage, telling us about the way that he went into medicine. He went into medicine really a hard way by not being able to get into American schools, and he had to go to Grenada. So he tells us a little bit about himself and where he came from on his way to simply trying to become a doctor.
So we all became concerned about why this had happened. And so my friend of mine, who's still a really good friend of mine today, we went up to the top of the dormitory lifting weights. Can't you all tell I'm such a buff guy that, So anyway, we're lifting weights, and you could see down into the town. And so down into the town, all of a sudden you see smoke and you hear machine gun fire. And so I'm thinking, there's something not good going on down there. Something's really not good. And so the people that were working in the dorm, locals, started to cry. So there was one radio station on the whole island. It had gone black. 7 o'clock that night, we get a guy come on. He was head of the military and basically said, there has been a coup. We are in charge. There's a 24-hour shoot-on-sight curfew. So you are inside. You do not leave your home. You don't go anywhere. Anybody caught protesting against the government, you're going to be shot. So needless to say, we didn't go anywhere. So decided we want to get off the island. Well, as luck would have it, no transportation could be obtained at all. The military government would not guarantee our safety to the airport. So that night, it was a Monday. The next day, awakened to the sound of anti-aircraft fire right outside the dorm. Just a surreal experience, to say the least. I'm thinking, here I am wanting to go to medical school. I'm stuck in the middle of an international incident, and am I going to live through this?
Yes. You go off to medical school, and then the question you're asking yourself is, am I going to live? Oh, my goodness. And so he just caught our attention right from the beginning with two really incredibly amazing stories about him simply trying to be a doctor. And the second story even involved the Supreme Court. So that was just nuts. But his main message was about the 4 R's of communication. And Dr. Jeep really rolled us through those 4 R's and helped us understand what it takes to communicate, not only with our spouses, our boyfriends, our girlfriends, our partners, but with people in general. And so we have to go back to those 4 R's. Our next speaker was Nurse Talonda Rogers. She tells a harrowing story about a pregnancy loss that she had. And it always brings me chills. And I get a little choked up thinking about it now because, well, in my own life, I had a pregnancy loss. Well, of course, I wasn't the one pregnant, but my wife was pregnant at the time. We lost our daughter, Jasmine, at just around 24, 25 weeks. And anytime I hear someone tell their story about pregnancy loss, it brings chills to my skin because I remember my own. So we'll let Nurse Talonda take it from here.
You can make a difference in this. So, bias, listen, and authenticity is what we need. Bias is a prejudice that is present but not consciously held or recognized. I highlight here students, nurses, doctors, because that's the crowd we're in, but everyone has bias. And when we exhibit these biases, there's problems. May I present to you that implicit bias, the bias that we're not aware of, the bias that lives in our subconscious, is worse than explicit bias. Because if you're explicitly biased or prejudiced or racist, I know how to deal with you. Better yet, I know how not to deal with you at all. So you show me who you are. Great, thank you very much. Implicit bias is dangerous because implicit biases, like I said, it goes against what we say we are and what we say we believe. Our implicit bias is things we're not even aware of. So as providers and as nurses and anyone who's dealing with patients, it's important for us to stop and check ourselves. We need to stop and say, am I really hearing this patient? Would I be treating this patient, if she was my daughter, my niece, my mother, the same way as what I'm telling this woman? Would I recommend, would I make these recommendations? What would I do if this was my own family member? So check our biases, because failure to recognize the pain, especially of African American patients, regardless of whether it's conscious or unconscious, has the potential to affect treatment options.
And Nurse Talonda's work has taken from this pregnancy loss that she suffered to really showing how it goes out in clinical medicine. She's an instructor in a nursing school. She's a best-selling author, and talks about the things she wished she had learned in nursing school. But really talking about how bias has a role in all of our lives. And bias, we all have it. Some of it we know about, some of it we don't. And we need to be paying particular attention to the bias we don't know about. So she kept that in our mind. And as we wrapped up that final day that I can't tell you the emotions I was feeling by this time in the program when I was looking at so many people who were going and had just had this emotional journey. They had really shared emotions with all of our speakers. And this is when we decided to run the pilot episode of Licensed to Live, the TV show. I had no idea this was going to go down at Licensed to Live 2022. And I am sorry I didn't tell anybody about it. But unfortunately, one of my speakers had to cancel at the last minute. It was the day before the show, and there was no way I was going to be able to bring someone else in from, all parts of the country to get in on time to deliver an address. So I had to fill the time. And this is just a lesson on being flexible. I could have been pissed off and angry and just been mad at the situation, wondering, why is this happening? Why is this going to make the show fail? But I didn't. I had to adapt and change. And honestly, what came out of this pilot for the License to Live show was incredible. Just on this short notice, we were able to pull off this show. And I hope at some point I'll be able to show the trailer for it. Make sure you are following and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Dr. Jarrett. Spell out the word Dr. J-A 2 R's E1T, because that is where I will release the trailer episode of this show, because it in and of itself was incredible. And every single person in the audience was full of tears during this moment of the show.
Go ahead. I know you want to do it. Let me give you guys a moment here, because I know that you guys have this connected history through this story on two different sides of this conflict. And I would like to introduce Dr. Jeep to Robert Brown. Robert Brown, Dr. Jeep.
No, it's going to be more than that.
There'll be more License to Live right after this break.
Well, there he is. Oh, my God. Yeah, you called an audible, all right.
You guys enjoying yourself? All right. You know we're going to entertain at this show. We talked about this at VIP Day. We talked about this yesterday. We're talking about it again. This is what we do here. We change lives. We impact lives. And when I knew of this story, I couldn't believe it. I was ready, and I knew I had to introduce these two people because they both told incredible stories on opposite sides of this conflict. So it's an honor to have you guys here on the show today, just because I'm getting choked up with all this emotion myself.
Well, let me tell you, Doc, I did nothing. This man did everything.
And I got to tell you, Doc, honestly, the way I look at it, it was just a case of you and your friends needed some help, and me and my friends were there to give it to you.
And that was just part of a special moment that you had to be there. But you better believe I will be bringing the License to Live show so that everyone can see it. In fact, this pilot episode that we shot was something that I was trying to give to Dr. Phil so that he could have this on his platform and show, because it's such a feel-good story. Oh, man, I'm not going to spoil it all, but you have to check it out to see it. Right now you go see it at licensetolive.com, but we will get that pilot episode edited and out. And best to believe that I will be letting you guys know about it as soon as it comes out. And after all that drama, our final speaker on stage, at first I thought she was going to go into a roast the way she got into her presentation. Dr. Central Crawford, an addiction medicine specialist, psychiatrist, best-selling author, podcast host of the Urge Fix podcast, and film director, really talked about her life becoming a director of a film. And her first film that released was Us versus the Plant, which, well, yours truly was the narrator of in my first voice acting gig. So I was able to do that. But her comments really started off what I thought was going to be a roast, but she really got us fired up for what she had going on as she talked about changes in her career.
So I met Dr. Jarrett over 6 years ago at a little conference called Momentum in Medicine. I remember scheduling myself for this conference, thinking I spent most of my life trying to be a doctor, and I worried if that was not the only thing I should be doing, if there was something else that I was called to do, and how do I find that journey? I was very nervous about going to this conference. First of all, it was expensive. I never spent $597 on a ticket to go anywhere. Second, it was more expensive because the hotel it was in was expensive. But it was a good journey. I met my partner in crime, Dr. Jarrett. We talked every day for the last 6 years, not on weekends. You know, sometimes on weekends if it was a football game, but otherwise it's not on weekends. But he has been instrumental to my development. There's not many decisions I make without running by him. You know, with all of his experience as a career coach, also he's just a great friend, and he's really good at listening and being, you know, chill, sort of a gentle giant. That's what I would think of him as. But when I went to this conference, I became a part of a group of physicians who wanted to be also entrepreneurs and also wanted to change lives. Not just one-to-one with patient care, but mostly one-to-many, and using their individual talents to really reach their patients. I personally went on the journey. I have learned I was very shy. I may still be shy. I just fake it a lot. But over the last 6 years, I've developed into someone who wants to show myself more and wants to reach more people and educate the masses on mental health, lifestyle, and things that really affect people. Like the topic we just talked about, maternal mortality. You know, I've been thinking about this for several years now. And actually, when we get to what I do, I thought about doing a documentary on it. But documentaries are very expensive. You know, I have the outline of it, but it's a very difficult task because I remember when I was in school, I'd never been pregnant or had a baby, but I had some ovarian issues. And I remember how the doctor and the staff treated me. I was a third-year medical student, so I was confused. And I was actually rotating at the hospital that I went to the ER to get treatment for. And they treated me as if I was a drug seeker, that I didn't have any pain. And until they got me in the back room, scanned my abdomen, did they realize that I was actually about to die. And I was rushed to OR within 20 minutes. You know, so the importance of doctors being compassionate and having empathy and actually having a work-life balance is like top priorities. And I think physicians don't know how to stop. And when they finally stop, it's too late. They've made a mistake or something else tragic happened. They lost a patient.
Yeah, and that's how Dr. Centrell said it, and that's how she put it, and she stands by it. But she really talked about her film projects, her current film projects, her past film projects, and even her television show that's coming out. I teased her. I said, hey, my television show came out today. So there were so many things you missed, and not only just the content of this, but people have told me how now they've been booked on television shows. Now the connections they made at this conference have led them to podcast interviews. They've led them to doing different things, even funding for some of their projects. So it's about those connections that you can make that let's face it, in our virtual world, we've gotten better with them, but it's nothing like having people there in person. So I implore you guys, Philadelphia is easy to get to. Next year, License to Live 2023, make sure you show up. Remember, fire starters, if you or anyone you know has been dissed, please invite them to join us along this journey. Simply go to your favorite podcast player and hit subscribe. That way, you can stay up to date with the best information about career challenges and life changes. Hey, and if you need a little bit more of what I'm doing, check me out on social media, especially on LinkedIn, because that is where I tend to hang out in between episodes. And until then, I'll see you next time.
No matter how disheartening the moment of accusation sounds, how deep the pain of immobilization stabs, or how bleak your future looks, no one can take away your license to live. Keep Dr. Jarrett's expertise handy and unlock your future. Go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or another podcast player and subscribe right now to Licensed to Live. See you next time.
The time is now to refresh your career. We help doctors, lawyers, executives, and VIPs refresh and restart. Dr. Jarrett's coaching helps you build confidence, gain more credibility, develop more leadership skills, and gain clarity in your career path. Want to climb the executive ladder or branch out on your own? We'll put your career in overdrive. Visit drjarrett.com and sign up for your free strategy session.